Welcome to the Grand Potential. We are thrilled that you are here. Our podcast today is connected to our community, the Grand Connection, our virtual online networking community. And today we are super thrilled to have with us a presentation skills specialist, executive speech coach, and speaker. Suzannah works with business professionals who want to position themselves as leaders by delivering more engaging and compelling presentations, allowing them to step out in front of audience with confidence, build their careers and their businesses, and really stand out as a leader that they truly are. So, Suzannah, we are so excited to have you today on our podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Carolyn and Susan. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. And we're going to focus in three areas. So as you know, we have our three core values, which is connect, the second one being create, and the third one being collaborate. And I'm going to dive right into this core value that we represent on connect. Now, Suzannah, I would love you to share with our community, what's your story? How did you become so purposeful and passionate and knowledgeable about presenting? So your journey to get here in regards to this massive contribution that you give to businesses.
Well, thank you for asking. You know what I could say, it's a long story, so I'll shorten it down for you and just say that it really started and is based from a beginning of being very shy. I mean, extremely shy, extremely wallflower, really afraid of public speaking, really afraid of putting myself as the center of attention or having people look at me in any unfortunate way, right? So it came from a beginning of that, not because of any negative thing. I grew up in a family where I was the quiet one, and I got used to being the quiet one, and everyone around me, when you're quiet, everyone just gets used to you being in the background. So that's kind of fine when you're a kid and you retreat back into what's comfortable for you. But as you get older, things have to start changing, right? And it's as you get older and as you leave school and get out into the real world that you realize that being shy, and telling people that, no, I'm not going to do any public speaking. I'm not going to speak up at a meeting. I'm not going to, even in university, it was a terrifying prospect to speak, to give presentations, but it was worse almost once I got into the work world. And I knew that I was very qualified. I knew I was very competent, but every time I was given an opportunity to speak, I would say, no, you do it. You do it. I don't want to do it. I'm no good at that stuff. And after a while, it starts to take a hit on your credibility. It starts to take a hit on your authority. People started to be comfortable putting me back in the background again. And then, I realized that I have more to give, but how on earth am I going to get over this? Right. So, I can look back and say this came from, many steps. I joined Toastmasters, which is a public speaking organization that many people are familiar with. And it was certainly helpful to get me out of, force me into speaking in a encouraging environment. But what really changed everything, I can actually look back at one particular moment in life where everything changed, where I knew that this is where I had to direct all of my energies. And about 1 year into my Toastmasters experience, they asked, the club was approached by an alumni association at McGill University, where I went. They were approached by alumni association. They said, can you send some people over to talk about public speaking? And I was feeling a little bit more brave after my 1 year of experience, in the club. And I volunteered along with a few other people, and I put together my little 5-minute speech. I think it was about speech structure. I don't know, it must have been, because that's really where everything took off from. But, in my little structured 5 minutes, and this day, as I was about to give this first public presentation, all these people were coming into the room. There were probably about 30 people, all professionals, all in these nice suits and ties and great shoes and fancy pens. And I mean, they were like the epitome of success. And I was like, what am I even doing talking in front of these people? What could I possibly have to say in front of this group that could be of any value? And so my slot comes up. I start talking my 5-minute presentation, and I really remember these two women sitting in front of me in the front row with the fancy pens, the nice suits, the fancy shoes, whatever. And as I'm talking about the speech structure, they pull out the fancy pens and they start writing down what I'm saying. And if I could tell you that it was that exact moment, it was like lightning struck me. And it was so shocking to me that anyone would find that what I was saying was important enough to write it down. I left that night just a changed person. And I left going, well, okay, but what do I do now? I have finally found what it is that I want to do, because up to then, you know, I'm working in marketing companies, I'm working in IT companies in the marketing departments. I was doing jobs and not really happy. But all of a sudden I felt this moment of, this is it. And that night I left, I mean, forever grateful to these two women who just, all they had to do was write down what I said to really change my life. But it changed my life because up to then I really, whether it was imposter syndrome, whether it was just bad self-image, whatever, that I felt that what I had to say was not valuable. Who would care? Because I had a whole life of people not really paying attention to what I was saying. And so it really fundamentally changed me. And I mean, it was a bit of a road to get from that moment to, well, now how do I build the business? How do I find my way in the business? But that was the moment that was enough to transform everything and set me on a different life direction. I'll be forever grateful because I have so many people that I work with now who, I mean, they're so successful. I mean, in my eyes, from an academic perspective, a business perspective, a creative perspective, but they still come to me with this imposter syndrome, this feeling that what they have to say is not important. Who's going to care? They're such terrible speakers. They're so self-critical. And every time I meet one of these people and I see this opportunity to help them, you know, flower into something that they don't believe they are yet. Right. But I know they are, but they just need a little bit of guidance to realize what they are capable of and what other people see in them too. Kind of I meant for that to be shorter, but that was a bit longer.
I absolutely love it, Suzannah. So I call those moments hard rights. You know, I mean, it did change your life. And you were ready for that too.
Yeah.
You were looking for that too.
I was 100% looking.
What that is one of those moments in time that are those magical moments that change everything. And I believe, and Susan believes too, is the reason that we're doing this grand potential podcast and running this, you know, global virtual networking organizations is to give people this insight and hope and know that each person has that in them. And that's truly what you help them do.
Yeah.
And it's so inspiring to hear your story. Thank you so much for sharing that, because, you know, we all need to find our lane, our path, our journey to really serve and help people in ways that bring joy to us. And I can see the joy you have in your face in supporting people to elevate their confidence, to believe in themselves, but they need someone to believe in them first too. So this connects with our other value. We're going to jump there later, but collaboration. We believe it takes a community or a coach to help them, you know, overcome these hurdles and obstacles of self-doubt or like that. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
So I'm curious to connect with this. I mean, I love what you're about. And so how is it that you help people, you know, to focus inward, be succinct on what they want to say and present it in a way that really includes their natural personality and that process. So How does that happen? How do you help?
Oh, well, you know what? A funny thing is that when not when all the clients come to me, but when a majority of people come to me, they come to me with, please help me feel better, right? They'll say, please help me feel better. Sometimes they'll say, I need help across the board with everything about presentation. Sometimes it'll just be, oh, I'm fine with my content, but help me feel better. And to everyone, and it doesn't even matter if I'm talking to an artist, a teacher, a manager, a VP, a CEO, because all of them will come with a version of that. And granted, they will come, some really need help with the confidence issue, some really want to understand better how to engage their audience, some really want to stand out as leaders and be seen as leaders. So they come to me with the variety of different needs. Many of them come with the feeling, I need to feel better. And with any of them, for whatever reason, someone comes to me, I start them in the same place. The first thing I say to them is, I can acknowledge the fear, the discomfort, the bad feelings. I acknowledge it. It is real. We're going to just put that aside for now, okay? Because we can't get anywhere if we just focus on how bad we're feeling and how hard it is and why. I think sometimes people are almost looking for permission for me to say, oh, listen, you know what, public speaking is not for you. Like, just don't, give it to someone else. It's fine. It's not for you. You don't have to do it. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, don't worry about it. Because if they're coming to me, it's because they know they have more to give. They are tired of this feeling. They are tired of being passed over. They're tired of being not paid attention to. But they're also tired of not being familiar with how to say what they want to say in a way that the audience will go, oh, but tell me more, right? And that's what we want to look for. It's so when they come to me and say, okay, please help me feel better. So we need to put that aside, because we need to look at not how you're feeling and what's going on in your head and your body and all those physiological things, but what are you really trying to say? Right? What is this expertise? What is this experience that you have, the background you have? Let's get clear on that. And then let's look at it in, how does your audience need to hear this? Right? So the way I work is it's like a 3-step process, again, with everyone across the board, where step 1 is all about, like, let's get clear and focused on, like, your essential message. What do you really want the audience to think and feel and do as a result of hearing your message, right? Let's get focused on it. Let's not bombard them with everything. Let's stay focused. Then when we're clear on that, we, and that involves looking at the audience, because the audience is also composed of many different people and different personality types, and they need to hear a message a different way. Some need to hear, like, get to the point, let's go, give me the bottom line. Other people need to take time to consider and ask questions and think about things. Some people are really focused on, what do I need to do right now? And others are like, who can support me, right? They're task focused, they're people focused. So how do you get your point across? Whether you're speaking to one person or many, how do you get your point across and that message in a way the audience needs to hear? So when you're talking to a larger group, it's, how do you say the same thing in a variety of different ways so that everyone is engaged? And when you're speaking to that one person in front of you, how can you gauge what is most necessary for them to hear about your message? What's most relevant and meaningful so that you can connect, right? And I know that's one of your tenets is the connection, but it's all about the connection, because if you can't get the audience to connect with what you're saying and see why it's important to them, relevant, meaningful, well, then it doesn't matter what you're saying, because they'll leave it aside.
And it doesn't land, does
yeah,
it?
It doesn't land. The connection is first and foremost. So that's why step 1 is about get clear on what you want to say and how the audience needs to hear that message. And then we can move into step 2, which is all about, now we understand what it is we want to say. Well, how are we going to structure it? How are we going to say what's first, what's second? How do you identify the problem that they can connect with? How do you support? What is the supporting material? What stories do you need to tell, or examples do you need to share to really continue engaging and re-engaging them? And then at the end, what is the next step? What do they need to do? And then the third step is about the delivery and the feeling, right? Like now, once you're clear on what you want to say and you've structured it, well, now let's hear it come out of your mouth, right? Because it can be a beautiful script, it can be a beautiful PowerPoint or a beautiful slide deck. If it's not coming out of your mouth the right way and you're not saying it, not, and whether it's a matter of the delivery being a little off, or whether you're saying it just, it's not coming out right and you need to tweak how you say it, that's the third stage. And then away you go, right? So
Love it. Love
yeah.
it. Way you go.
Way you go.
Love it. But the structure, the 1, 2, 3 is totally brilliant. And I love the flow and the process of that creation, because to start here, go here next, and then third. So do you get them to do videos, and you help them with the video aspect of that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, sometimes I mean, in terms of creating videos that I review, is that what you?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? For a lot of my clients, I have to sort of force them into it, because a part of it is, if you just rehearse or practice, but then you don't get feedback, well, I mean, how do you know what's good and what's bad, right? So I will always push, and they always get really uncomfortable. You could tell this awkward, like, oh my God, you want me to record it and then you're going to watch it, and you would be surprised at how many people just cannot watch themselves on video, like just refuse. Right, Susan? And yet when I push, or I don't want to say push, when I gently guide, urge, with love and caring, they will always say, it was really tough at the beginning, but that was maybe one of the most worthwhile things I've done, is to watch myself, right? It's number one, it's to actually do the recording, and that's worthwhile. And then even more is to put our ego aside and watch ourselves with all, warts and all, even though we are all far better than we think we are, but to watch themselves and see what does the audience see, what does the audience hear. And it's a really powerful process. And what's powerful about it is how uncomfortable people are in doing it. But then once they do it, and then they discover, wow, like this is huge, that it's a game changer.
Yeah. And not only for them, but all the people that they will impact.
Yes.
With their presentation. Like, I just see it as such a ripple effect when they release that ego, you're saying, and take that objective perspective. I have one client that her whole entire life has changed, and I encouraged her to do videos. I did not coach her in doing the videos. She hired someone, yet her whole business is based on that presentation with her videos. And it was just an extraordinary, for me as a business coach, to witness her confidence grow so dramatically, and clarity in her message and her stand. Yeah. I mean, so I know that you love watching people transform from when they showed up to, and seeing the end product. So could you give us just, I don't know, maybe one case study, or one of the favorite transformational processes that you've had with a client or a group that's your favorite?
Yeah, there's so many favorites though. So here's one that's actually it's so recent. So this may actually be my new favorite. I think I had a favorite before, so now she may have gone to my second favorite. This is my new favorite, and it's so new. Okay, so about 12 years ago, I used to teach a public speaking class. This was my first step into this industry. So at a university, I was hired almost no money. Like, it was one of those things, but it was just, after I had met those two women who wrote down what I said, it was within a few months. So I knew that this was part of the journey, even though it wasn't a very lucrative at that point. But I was given the opportunity to teach a 6-week public speaking class at the university. And I did that for several years. And it really helped spearhead the business, but that's not the point of the story. So the point of the story is that over the years that I did this, I had these brilliant students come in, because I worked with the graduate students, so the masters, the PhD, the postdocs. I mean, and I mean, talk about imposter syndrome, that I had people come in doing a PhD in bioresource, or biochemical science and electrical engineering. And here I was teaching them I'm like, what am I even doing in this world? Like these people are brilliant, but and they are brilliant, but you know, they had trouble expressing themselves. Not all, not some came because they were nervous. Some came because they instinctively knew that they have an incredible expertise, and they were a little bit stuck in, how do I share this with the world? And I was always in awe of them. And I remember always, every first class, I would say, you know, thank you for being here, because for all the work that you're doing and the studying and the research, it's almost a crime if you do not share this
Mhm.
with the world. Like, it's fantastic that you're here. So, I mean, a real honor to them to take that step in their already busy schedules, to come and do a public speaking class where there was homework and presentations and all that. So anyways, in one of these classes, and it was about 12 years ago, one of the students, she was in science, a PhD in science, and I didn't, you know, they were all brilliant, right? But fast forward 12 years to about 4 months ago, and I get an email that I don't recognize the name, but it was part of an email thread. And so what had happened was, the last email I sent her, like 12 years ago, saying, it was a pleasure having you in my class. I really enjoyed it. Good luck to you and everything that you do. She kept that email 12 years ago and resent it and said, hey, I've always remembered you. And now I'm living in Australia. I am now a chief science officer for a startup company where we are looking at blood tests and blood tests to detect early breast cancer. And so enough that floored me, that there's amazing that people are doing this, but that this was a student of mine. And she said, I always remembered you. And now we're about to, you know, I've got all these presentations. I'm presenting to boards, I'm presenting to investors, I'm presenting to partners, joint ventures, and I have to manage meetings in my organization. I have to lead meetings, run meetings, explain what it is that I'm doing, because there are a lot of people who aren't scientific. And I think I need to work with you again. And so, and of course, at first I'm like, this floors me that she still remembered me 12 years later. But then we start working together, and we've really only up to now, I mean, I almost hope she watches this podcast, but we had worked together twice. And and we had to work on this panel presentation that she had coming up. And she was really nervous about it, very self-critical, very down on herself, imposter syndrome. What am I doing in front of, it was a group of women, a panel presentation of women scientists who were speaking to upcoming women in science, and sharing her story. And as she told me her story, she was giving it to me in a chronological, well, then I went here, then I went to this Ivy League school, then this happened, then this happened. But putting it all together was this story of resilience, was a story of how her life changed along the way, a story of how she took her expertise, almost quit, but then decided not to, and where she got to today. Like, it was a very inspiring story. And when I told her story back to her, because she was like, well, this is just my story. Like, I don't, you know, what do I have to share? What do you not have to share? Like, it was a very inspiring story that I thought, you know, the issue is, how are we looking at the story? She's looking at the story as a chronological series of events, but it's like, no. How do we look at the story as a way to inspire up and coming and even current scientists? Like, it's a very inspirational story of women in science and everything that they have to go through to get there. So anyways, this panel presentation comes up. I had asked her if she could script it, if she could rehearse it, she could send me a video. She didn't have time for any of it. The day before, she sends me an email going, I'm so sorry, I didn't get to do any of it. I'll just do my best. I could just sense her. She was deflated. She was nervous. Anyways, she ends up sending me the recording of this presentation, you know, and I sent her back like, listen, you'll be fine. Focus on the message behind the story. Focus, be yourself. It's all fine. It's in you. Just let it out. Like, it's about, like, calm that self-talk that keeps trying to convince you that you're no good. right? Because that's, as long as we can just shut that up for just a little while and focus on the message, the audience, the story, and ultimately what you want them to get out of it, that's what we need. So she went out and gave this presentation. Then she sent it to me afterwards. And she sends me a script after. I was like, I thought you didn't even put a script together, but she did a script. She told her story. And it wasn't that it was just good. It was that afterwards she had so many people coming to her saying, thank you. I am inspired. I am moved. This changes everything for me. That she was able to experience that she could move people. She could inspire people, that she has made an impact on everyone who heard the story. So, is it, I could look at it and go, was it me? Was it all me because I helped, because I did for her? No, like I just helped her see another side of her that for some reason she just kept hitting the same block. And the meeting that we had afterwards, it was like there was a little bit more of a glow on her, that she was surprised, like that I really inspired people, and she didn't even feel like she could get there. So, I look back and even with you, and you said with your client who made a video and it changed everything, like ultimately I look at that and I go, well, she made the video, like you suggested it, you pushed it, because you saw something in her that maybe she didn't, but once they take that step, it opens up a lot. I mean, it opens up a world, right? So you, as the coach, you make this suggestion, you push and you guide and you lovingly, but it's ultimately up to them. But then when they take that step, that's where all the magic happens.
It does. And what's interesting? The video she created was for women going through breast cancer. Isn't that interesting, Suzanne?
Yeah.
I need to link her with this woman in Australia, to support women going through breast cancer, a whole wellness and health program.
That's amazing.
And she's now teaching registered massage therapists, because that's what she is. She's now teaching them how to serve women going through breast cancer that the specialists don't have time for. It's all health and wellness, mind, body, spirit connection. It's absolutely beautiful. And I think at this moment, there's some serendipity going on here. I love it. I love it. And I love your story, and, it's just 2 times she needed to connect with you. That's what she needed. It can be that simple, people. I mean, honestly, it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out, but the relationship you had with her 12 years ago, you had such an extraordinary connection. She's always thought about you, right? And those little things. So we never know the difference we're going to make in people's lives. I mean, I've had the same stories happen to me too. So we just don't know. And it may be happening, in the invisible, right? And they fall up. So I just want to point that piece, which I think is really extraordinary. And I honestly, I could talk forever about this. I'm going to pass it over to Susan.
Okay.
And Susan's going to talk about create, which is our second core value at the Grand Connection. Thank you.
Lovely to meet you, Suzannah. I was inspired by your story. How did she keep that email for 10 years too? That's impressive.
I
know. Being in technology, when people, their hard drives crash, you get malware, you change service providers. That's impressive.
Yep. Yeah.
In addition to the speaking.
I think it was a basic Gmail account that just never disappeared.
Yeah. Well, mine ran out of space and they made me pay the money now. So this is so I want to jump back to you talked about how you got started and you were afraid to speak, because I think this is a lot of us. I don't know about you, Carolyn, but I've been afraid about speaking a good part of my life. Just a few stories. In middle school, we had career day and I was going to be a lawyer. This was my big plan. And on career day, we went on a field trip to the courthouse. And it's this big giant room, and there's the podiums, and there's all these chairs, and this is the big one of Winnipeg. There is even a theater up at the back where people are going, so different levels. And I said, where does the lawyer go? And they said they stand at this podium. And then back at all the seats, like 500 people could be in that room. And I decided I was not going to be a lawyer. That was it. It changed as Carolyn talked about those directional changes, that was going and just seeing that. And if I never went on that field trip, I probably would be a lawyer here and I wouldn't be here today. And then in university, oh my gosh, we had 50% participation. That was scary, like for our marks, and you had to speak, and that was that, and I wanted to get good grades. It was terrifying to sit in that classroom waiting for something to say and everybody watching you, because it's 100 people in the room or so. How do people deal with this fear if they know everybody knows now that you kind of need communication skills are very, very important. The world has turned video. We're as a small business owner, getting out and sharing your story is critical to your success. We all have to be good at this skill. What you offer is so important for everybody. How do we take that first step now? We're terrified to speak in front of other people. What do we do?
Okay, so there's two ways. My clients, I could look at my clients, and I could look at my own story and almost relate it to the clients and say, like, what do we do first? Now, I know you may be asking for like tips, like what do I breathe, take a deep breath from the diaphragm. So we can get to that in a second, but I would say that the first step of the two types of people who come to me, the one, they come to me because they know they have something coming up, a big presentation or conversation or a big meeting they have to run, and they want to do a really good job. Maybe fear is not the issue. They just know that they need help getting their thoughts together, putting it all together, practicing it. The others come to me because, and it's related to the fear, so this does indirectly answer your question, is that they reach a point where they're just so tired and frustrated at feeling the fear that they need help. They realize they need help. Now, whether it's with a coach or Toastmasters or some online course or whatever it is, it's that feeling of frustration, the feeling of I'm tired of being overlooked. So I think it's sort of, we need to recognize that, when you have the fear and it holds you back from speaking up, from sharing a story, from speaking at work, from speaking up at meetings, sharing an opinion, that's a problem, because so many people, and all people, have this experience, this expertise, this background, and opinions that are very unique, that are very valuable, that are not sharing them, right? So even when we look at Carolyn's client who's working with women in breast cancer, like, if she just let fear say, oh, I'm not going to do it, I feel bad, I don't feel right, I hate it, it's not for me to, well, think of all the people who would not be benefiting so much from what she's doing, right? So we have to almost look outside ourselves and go, okay, what is it costing me to stay quiet? What is it costing the world? What am I not sharing with the world because I've decided to stay quiet? And maybe this was a lesson for when I was teaching these students 12 years ago, who were these PhDs and who were choosing to take the steps to say, I don't want to let this fear, this discomfort, this inability to focus my thought, whatever it is, I don't want that to keep me back from being able to share what I know. But you don't have to be a PhD or a postdoc to have something of value to share. So it's even, Carolyn's client, my client, who's the chief scientific officer, like, had they decided, well, I'm just going to hang back and do, I'll do the research, I'm not going to share, what is the world missing out on? And what is that person missing out on? Because once you unlock this awareness of the impact that you can have, well, then you just take off, right? Then it rolls, like Carolyn was saying, the universe takes over and keeps sending you in the right places, right? So all that to say, the first step is recognition that, okay, I don't need to be afraid of public speaking. The other thing is, there's a lot of people who are afraid and fear, but do it anyways, and their audiences can't tell, right? So there's that too. And I work with a lot of high-level VPs, CEOs. They have to get on Zoom calls or in front of 400 people, and then afterwards they're like, oh, I had to use a script. I'm so nervous. I don't know how to sit. And I'm like, really, you? Like, because even I come with this bias of, oh, but you're the CEO. You must love this. Like you must be in your element. And they're not, but sometimes you can't tell, right? That said, sometimes you can tell that people are nervous. That's fine. We're all human. Like I think as an audience member, I don't necessarily always expect that the person speaking is going to be this, Tony Robbins kind of bastion of confidence. But if you can listen in, like, where is their expertise, where is the value in what they're saying, that's what I need, right? So, okay, if you fidget a little, if you're nervous a little, if your mouth gets dry, okay, like, but what are you trying to share with me, and how is it going to affect me? Because that's ultimately what your audience needs. How can what you know and your expertise, how can that help my life? And that's how the speaker needs to address it. So all the way coming back to your original question, Susan, because this was like a long answer to what was probably meant to be a very short and easy question, is the first thing I think someone needs to do when they are afraid of public speaking is, number one, decide that you're going to speak and share anyways, and you'll just deal with those feelings afterwards. So just make that decision. And the second thing is, instead of focusing on how you feel and the discomfort and the fear of being judged and the fear of saying the wrong thing and the fear of looking dumb and all that stuff, is focus on the message, right? What is it? And focus on the message, focus on the audience. What do I want this audience to get out of what I'm saying? Like, what is my point? What do I need them to walk away with? And when we can shift our mindset a little bit to the message and away from ourselves, then we can focus on the message and not pay as much attention to ourselves. Because the problem is when we get lost in our feelings of what we are going through, but the audience ultimately does not care that much. They care about what you're about to say going to affect, how's that going to affect my life? And so, and aside from that, yes, I could say preparation and practice and breathing, but ultimately that comes after just making these decisions that you're going to go ahead and do it. Just suck up those yucky feelings and focus on the audience and the message and not on yourself. Anyway, I do have this report that is it's about nine secrets to bulletproof your presentations, and it addresses part of that, like the practice, the preparation, but how do you practice? How do you prepare? How do you get yourself in front of that audience? So it's, how do you manage your head almost in getting yourself in front of that audience? So that's available on my website. It's a free download if you just go to SuzannahBaum.com, and you'll see it right up at the top. But that deals with like the technicalities of how do you manage the fear. But ultimately it all starts in your head, right? And we make the decision of, we're going to feel the fear, and we're going to find out afterwards that half the people didn't think you looked nervous at all anyways. So, and the other half, well, doesn't matter what they think, right?
And really it only matters mostly to you.
Yeah.
Right? Like other people have watched it, gotten the information they need from it, and kind of forgotten about it, right? So,
exactly.
And you're going to sit there and dwell on it. I have many things that I don't even want to look back at bad presentations I've done, and probably I'm the only person thinking about that.
Yes, you probably are.
And yeah, the one difficulty challenge we have now is everything's recorded. So, this is why I'm working with somebody like yourself is very helpful, because, if you're going to do a presentation and it matters, and it's going to be recorded and there for eternity, or as long as the digital world stays in place, you want to have done it your best. So I'm thinking through, like, what are the different types, like, just so everybody can sort of think about what are different types of presentations some of your clients have done.
Okay, well, and you know what, I'm actually really glad you asked that, because I was thinking in my head, I'm going to talk now. I think we need to clarify the different kind of presentations, because people will hire me because, yes, I'm giving a presentation, in the pre-COVID days at a conference or at a company event or a networking group or, community group, an association, whatever. Now, regardless that people have moved online or not, that I'm almost getting more business now that people are online because of the whole different level of, how do you engage? There's one way to engage when you're in person, and there's slightly different ways to engage when you're virtual. But still, for me, it all starts with the message, right? That's how do we engage is sort of second and third stage. We engage through stories, we engage through examples, we engage, but we also engage through how we're interacting with the audience. That said, so yes, there are the presentations, but more and more now I'm getting a lot of clients who say, I'm not giving presentations, but I have to speak up in a meeting, or I have to present for 10 minutes. Like, it's not a keynote, it's not a panel at a conference. I have to share this project. I have to talk about this project update. I have to present to the board. I have to ask for more money. I have to present the strategic plan. I have to respond to the strategic plan. Like it's, so people are giving educational, informative, this is what's going on presentations, but they're also giving, asking for money, asking for the sale, all the other things, which can sometimes be a presentation and sometimes just one-on-one conversation. You're speaking to one person, and it doesn't necessarily change how you need to structure what you're saying. It really, the focus still needs to be there. And that the big problem with so many presentations, and I say this to just about everybody when everyone nods, is that we've all had to sit through these presentations where the speaker gives us everything, like everything. Here's every piece of information you need to know about this project, this health, this fitness, anything you need. Here's everything. And then the audience is left overwhelmed, not knowing what to do. Right? With the speaker going, I'm going to give you everything, you decide what's important to you and leave the rest. And it just doesn't work that way, because the audience needs you as the speaker to decide in advance what they need to know and what is important to them. Don't leave it to the audience to have to figure it out themselves. And so very often, speakers will dump, it's a complete information dump, too much information, and that's when you start losing your audience. So we have to get focused on what do we need to happen from this meeting, this interaction, this conversation, this presentation, and go towards that. So actually, now I don't know if I got off your question, but you said what types of presentations? It's it's conference presentations, yes, it's company presentations, but it's also one-on-one. Like, how do I get this person? How do I connect with this person and get them to support me, support this project, buy my stuff, have faith and trust in me, right? Because it's through this connection, whether it's a connection of that one person or the connection of the audience, through this connection, you gain the trust. And with the trust, you can influence, you have a greater influence over the audience.
So a couple of other types of talks people do too. A lot of our members are doing TED Talks.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a whole process in itself, because that's very short and concise. And as we all know, the more concise you make something, the more you actually have to work on it to get that message so crystal clear.
You're so right.
Have you worked with people on TED Talks?
Have I? No, I don't think I have. Usually I will tell you that I have a colleague who is a specialist in the TED world. Yeah. So when someone comes to me and says, I would like to do a TED Talk, I mean, I can help people get a keynote down to the 18 minutes. But when it's a TED Talk, I'm like, listen, I don't mind, recommending someone else who is a complete expert in the TED world. I completely get what it takes to focus down. And,
so they could work with you for all the presentation skill.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And all that, and work through. And because what I see even in my own life is that I've got multiple ways that I'm communicating. I got the Facebook Lives I'm doing. I do introductions in networking groups. Sometimes I find those really terrifying, because if I'm planned out and I know I'm going to do a talk, I'm actually kind of prepared. But when you're just going to go and then they just say, and Susan, you're next, and suddenly you're up in a Zoom room and you can't see the people, but you see a number, there's like 200 people or something in the room. I actually get like this little not little pain in my back. And I know
Not so little, right?
it's right at the bottom of the back. And it's just, I think it's just the nerves hitting that, oh my God. And then I do my thing, I'm fine. And then afterwards, I feel the pain again in my back for about a minute and then it's gone. But I know
Really?
I don't get that with any other talk, but it's these spontaneous ones. And I was terrified, Carolyn. Remember when we had to start doing Facebook Lives? Oh my gosh, we didn't want to do them. I was kept, saying, Carolyn, you do them instead. Because it's this, you got to go live. You haven't really prepared. Our panels, I think, would be nerve-wracking too, because people are interviewing you and you really don't know what they're going to ask you, although it's usually your expertise. So you feel comfortable enough in that and you got the stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm just going through the types of things that people need to think about when it comes to building those presentation skills. There's a lot you're doing. You've got sales pitches, you've got even conversations with clients.
Yep.
That, you're going to do a talk somewhere. Maybe you're pre-recording stuff for your website. Like I had to do some recordings for a welcome video yesterday. And you know what? It took us 5 or 6 rounds and I'm still not happy with it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I believe that when we get these skills down from like working with somebody like you, we can actually be a lot quicker at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Quicker, easier, and I mean, sometimes it's also a matter of, perfect. What is done is better than perfect.
Yeah. Well, I say that all the time,
Yeah.
People,
We
just get
say that-
something up there.
I hear you. And we say it. And yet how many times do we redo
Yeah.
good enough presentations because, we just need it to be just a little bit better, just a little bit better. Right. So I keep saying it too. I'm not a master of done is better than perfect. I will also, times when I have like a 2-minute presentation, because on my YouTube channel, I have 2 or 3-minute presentations. Sometimes I'm recording and re-recording the same 2 minutes, like 9 or 10 times, that it could take me an hour or 2 hours to do a 2-minute presentation. And at the end, I'm exhausted, right? Like, people are like, what did you do today? I recorded a 2-minute presentation and I can't even talk to you because I'm so exhausted.
See, but you have to have it come out good because this is your business.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So there's a good justification for the 2 hours on.
Well,
2
just
minutes.
like me, my website, when my website goes down for some reason, I'm in a panic because I'm a web developer. Like we can't have this happen because that's my business, right? And people will say, well, if her website's down, well, I can't hire her, right?
Yeah.
So, it matters to me even more than anybody else in the website and for you for the presentations part.
Yeah.
But
a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure to step up and
some quick tips, just like I know everybody's wanting to know, how do we get rid of the so's, ahs that we're talking about all the time when we're talking? Because I know we all do it, and I listen back on my stuff, which is one of the reasons I don't want to listen back because I hear it all. How can I get better and create better habits for that?
Well, I would say that the first thing you need to do is listen and watch yourself. I'm sorry, Susan. I know you don't want to hear it. Is that the first way to really fix it is to become aware of what it is when you say it, how you say it, where it comes into your presentations. One of the best things I ever did was I audio recorded. I was getting ready for a 45-minute keynote, and it was brand new content. This is like 6 years ago, brand new content. And I audio recorded myself, and then I don't know, I drove, it was a 2-hour drive somewhere, and I listened. And I was able to listen and say, okay, don't listen to criticize, but listen as if you're an audience member, right? And like just step outside yourself. And it was really like quite a valuable experience to hear where the ums came from, when they came, how often. And for me, it's my issue is not so much ums and ahs, but so. I said so all that. And this is something, you too, Carolyn. And this is something that it's a part of me, right? When I was in Toastmasters, and we're talking like 2002 to 2010, I was getting feedback then that they were like, you say so quite a bit, right? So I know, see, there it was. I know that this is something that will follow me. I need to be more aware of it, but it still slips out, and I can't beat myself up over it all the time. That said, we need to be aware when we're saying it too often, because there's that fine line between conversational ums and ahs and so's and every single sentence. And that's when it starts getting distracting. So the best way to, how do you start killing them out of your speeches, out of your presentation? You got to listen to yourself, right? Record it, listen to yourself, but listen to yourself, go easy on yourself and say, okay, I'm not going to listen to myself to criticize. I'll listen to myself as if I'm just a person outside, and let me just pay attention to the ums, the uhs, look at it more scientifically than as an exercise in, self-criticism. And that's really, really helpful.
I love your comment of saying being aware, because I've been working on this for the last 3 or 4 months, honestly. And I am saying less of the 2-letter word there than I used to, because I can see it on the videos when I watch them. This is an evolution. This does not happen overnight, especially if that's a habit in your communication.
It's a part of me, this whole so thing. So much so, sorry, that was 2, right? But let's go with it, is that I'm in the process of writing, and I'm in the editing process of my first business book, and going through it, both the editor and other friends and colleagues who I've had, do a pass through, they've all said, you start sentences with so often. I'm like, and then I start reading through it. I'm like, wow, they're right. It is, that word is just a part of me, but I need to be mindful in the book, as in when I'm speaking, not to overuse it. And but I know it now because so many people have told me, because I've heard it, because now I've seen it on paper. So it's really, the more you know about what your style is, the easier it will become for you to almost stop yourself before you say it. Like, know when it's about to happen and stop yourself and say nothing instead. But you can't know that until you start listening to yourself a little bit more.
Exactly. And pausing. That's what I've been doing. I can feel the soul kind of coming around the fence. I
can see it coming.
It's lurking. It's lurking. And it's like, okay, I missed that one, right?
Yeah.
It's just being very present, very conscious and aware, for me anyway. And my desire is to be the best that I can be. Speaking. And that's
and it's a process. Listen, I mean, you know what, the experts are experts because they have coaches who continually help them become better, right? So just because someone is amazing at what they do doesn't mean that there's not a team of people behind them that makes them amazing. With all of my coaching clients, I have them fill out a self-assessment questionnaire before we start working together. And one of the questions, which is my very favorite question in the whole world, is who's your favorite speaker and why? And so many of them reference the same people. They reference Obama, they reference Brene Brown, they reference Oprah, they reference Simon Sinek. And I'm like, but that it's not just them. Like, there is a team of people surrounding them that helps them be better, whether it's the speech writers, the coaches, the anything. And they get help to become this image of this perfect person that we see. So if they can do it, we just need to be mindful. It's like those, how everybody looks so gorgeous on Instagram. Like, it's the same thing. There are ways, the things that we can do to make us better, make us more gorgeous on Instagram, but there are ways to make us better in a professional context, to always improve yourself. And it just reminds me of one quick thing that I love listening to interviews and podcasts also, like this one. But one of the podcasts that I love listening to is Howard Stern. And one time I listened to one where he was interviewing John Bon Jovi, who's like one of my favorite people in the whole world. And John Bon Jovi talked about his singing coach and how he meets with his singing coach. I don't remember if it was every day or a couple of times a week, but it was like a religious thing. I have a singing coach and we meet all the time. And I was like, wow, man. And here I am thinking, John Bon Jovi is just a natural. He's been singing for 30 years. It's just natural talent. No, it's not. It's a singing coach that helps him and has been helping him all the time, years and years and years. And it was an interesting thing because I come with all these biases of amazing people who just got there because were born with it, and more you realize, no, that we're not all born with it. Some of us are born with different skills, and some of us work harder to improve the ones that we want to get better at.
And this really leads into our last core value, which is collaborate. And what you're talking about right now is being open to that concept of receiving outside support, whether it be a community giving you feedback like the Grand Connection. We, in our mastermind breakouts that will happen after you present at our event, people receive really honest feedback, and we give them direct questions that they can explore that. That's priceless feedback, I think. And really getting people to look at what the truth is in the situation. And, you know, collaboration is, I think it takes, you know, coaches and a community and support to really grow your expertise, your value, your business. To do it alone, this is Susan's and my core piece, and why we stood at the Grand Canyon on March 15th, just when COVID hit, is when we thought of, we have to do something online for these people that are going to be in catatonic fear with this pandemic. They're not going to know how to shift their business digitally, and we have to serve them. I mean, we just started out with this heart-based service position, and now it's grown into our calling, our meaning to serve the world. I mean, it's extraordinary. And to meet awesome people like yourself and learn from you. I mean, it's my inspiration. I mean, I just think that people need to know these specific business skills to be successful, and how, you know, glorious that they can have this and reach their grand potential. You can't do it alone. It will take you, you know, so much longer, years and years and years longer. And you're only in your own hamster wheel. I mean, you only know what you know. You don't even know that you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Right?
No, you're right.
So, you know, I love this concept of collaboration. You've led into this so much. Do you have any, I don't know, mentors or people along your path here that have been influential in supporting you to really reach your own grand potential?
Yes. You know what? What's been really helpful to me along the way is I don't want to say, is finding that group of people. And sometimes you luck into it, but I think it requires a little bit of searching. And I mean, the Grand Connection is obviously that group of people who support each other, who help each other grow, who generously give, right? And so I'm a member of a speakers association, and I mean, you know, thank goodness for them. I went from Toastmasters. I don't know if it's just, maybe it's luck. I don't know, that I went from Toastmasters, which was filled with supportive people. Like it's where you hang out with a group of people who afterwards you feel good, right? And I went from that, and then I was part of these women entrepreneurial groups that was also filled with people who generously give and help and support and smile at you and clap when you talk and all that kind of stuff, laugh at your stupid jokes. And now I'm at a stage where I'm in this speakers association where it's just filled with that group. So I don't know if it's not necessarily that I'm saying it's that association, but it's finding that group of people who can support you. And I mean, it sounds like Grand Connection is one of those places where you are surrounded by a very encouraging, positive, generous community. And so within this community, within at least my speakers association, which has been over the last 10 years, the most relevant source of mentors and supporters and coaches. I mean, I could think back, I could name some people, but I don't know if it would necessarily be relevant to say their name, but so much that it was, you know, some of the strong people, like the firm in what they believe in, because I have always struggled with stepping out and being firm on that. They've inspired me to, you know, stand up in front of an audience and say, this is what I believe, right? Not this is what I believe, but if you believe this other thing, that's okay too, right? It's no, this is what I believe. I've been inspired by the very kind people, like the ones who have to sit and talk to not so nice people, but they are still kind because that's their value, right? And I've been inspired by the generous people who pick up a phone, even though I barely know them, other than we're members of the same association, but they pick up a phone and they say, how can I help? And of course we can talk for an hour, and of course I won't charge you. How can I help? Right? And it's that inspires me. And so there are so many people along the way that I mean, I'm afraid if I mention one, that I'm going to miss out on 100. But at the same time, also there have been people who I have looked at from afar and for years, and looked at them as like this shining star. And we were talking about one before, who's also been a guest and a speaker at Grand Connection. And when I finally got, and I mean, can I name it? Can I name?
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Can I name that it was last month's speaker, Leslie Everett, who several years ago, I met her in a professional capacity, but she was kind of like this untouchable superstar to me. And then through the work of the universe, we ended up on a retreat together in the Dominican Republic. We were roommates, and I mean, just getting to know that this superstar celebrity in my world was just this very kind and strong and generous and fun and funny and real, authentic person. And it's moments like those that have inspired me also, that these superstars are just regular people who are just kind and nice and want to help you succeed, like, but genuinely happy to help you succeed without this competitive sort of thing. Like I bet, Carolyn, that this is part of your values, is that it's not about the competition, that because there's space for everybody.
And
right?
it's an abundant universe here.
Yes.
You know, I mean, Susan and I share this passionately, that we believe the Grand Connection is the connector of connectors. We have no competition. We partner with virtual networking organizations around the world, in Australia, in England, in Scotland, all across the States and Canada. And we bring their people with our people. It's the most glorious connection. And to me, that's one of the most important things for businesses to have, is to have this opportunity to build relationships like you're talking about. And we also, you know, above all, or connect, create, collaborate, what runs through it all is grand giving, we call it. And everything's grand around here, just to let you know. So, you know, it's a great thing. And grand giving is really, you know, having the mindset and the heart set that what can I do to support this other person? How can I serve them on their path and journey of business, you know, grand adventure, to support them? And, you know, we tend to attract people who are the same as us, which is, I think, what happens. So it's just making that decision that you gain so much by supporting and paying it forward.
Yeah. And by giving back. I mean, even on my Speakers Association, I've been on the board, I've been on the chapter board. Now I'm on the national board. It's the more you give, the more people know you and you know them. And there's so many more opportunities for collaboration. This opportunity with Grand Connection came through a collaboration with my Speakers Association, someone from the Speakers Association. So there's always somewhere along the way you get connected to this. When you're in a wonderful group, you continue to get connected to wonderful groups, right? And the more you can expand this network of amazing, authentic, wonderful people like you guys, the better. How could that not be worth the time, right? The investment of time
and energy. Honestly, and I think what my wonderful Auntie Marge in her 90s said, that whatever we give, we reap a tenfold harvest, which I truly know is a fact.
Yeah, well, it must have brought both of you a lot, like, to create this. It's a year and a half old, but look at how it's taken off, because there was a need, right time, right place, right people putting it together and attracting the right people.
Yeah, and you know, you talked about the position of your clients to not think about themselves, to think about the impact and the message and the intention to impact the people and their audience. We do exactly the same thing with the grant. It's always on our mind. So what do they need? What do they want? What are they looking for? So they need presentation skills. I mean, what you have brought today is priceless information. Like, people, listen up here, like explore this, really stretch out of your own comfort zone. Listen to what Suzannah Baum has said today and follow through on her recommendations, whether you make the decision to work with her one-on-one or whether you take advantage and go to her website to receive all the knowledge, watch her YouTube videos too. This is what it's about. And confidence, energy is everything in business. And the way that you'll build your business if people can connect with you, as Suzannah said, trust you, and then your influence is increased. Exactly Suzannah's words. So please, so how can, there's the so again.
It's okay. I don't even pay attention.
Okay, good.
I think it sounds perfectly normal to me.
Oh my goodness.
I just feel like I'm at a sewing school here, both of you.
That's funny. That's really funny. Where can our listeners and our community connect with you online? What do you have for our listeners to participate in?
Well, listen, there's on the social medias, LinkedIn, just my name, Suzannah Baum, spelled right here. My website, SuzannahBaum.com, also spelled right here on this podcast. There's a lot of resources on my website, including, links to the YouTube channel. But really, if you're going to go to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, just look up my name. There's only one Suzannah Baum, at least right now there is. But there is, if you just go to my website, a list of videos just intended to share tips. I've had a lot of people call me after they've already watched 3 or 4 videos and said, I've been watching them. They've really helped me. And now I'm ready to work with you because I have something even more. So there are helpful things based on the questions that people often ask me, the problems that clients come to me with. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make a video about that. So, so helpful videos, ideas on how to get over your fear, move past the nervousness. There is that free report, 9 secrets to bulletproof your presentation. So that's just free. You just put in your email and you'll get it right away. And there's also a couple of online courses, just small self-study, one that is designed specifically to help, like as Susan said, I'm just afraid, like, what do I do about the fear? And I had that question often enough that I was like, you know what, I'm going to help people with a small, it's a few short videos, a whole lot of checklists, templates, but really just designed to help you get from I'm too afraid to do this to, okay, now I have the tools and the ability to step out of this, this little box that I put myself in, get out of the comfort zone and present and leave the fear behind, or at least learn how to manage it, manage the fear while I'm presenting and sharing myself. Right. So there is that course there's a few courses, but that course is called How to Rock My Speech. And it's all about, banish the nerves and speak like a superstar. But it's really just, it's almost like a little step-by-step. You're a little nervous. Okay, well, here's how you get over it. And it's not $97, but Canadian, but I may make a special offer when at our event for that one, because that is a popular one, because that's what people come to me with a lot, not always, but it's not always the fear that people come to me with. They need to engage an audience. They need to just up level. They need to be better. Like, people know that they have it in them and they're not sure. How do I just get better? Like, how do I know it's in me? I don't know how to get there. Right. So there's a whole lot of resources on the site that will just help you step by step, get there, get closer to where you want to be.
Well, there's my one big question I didn't get to ask you. Can I ask it now?
Of course.
Here. Can you give us, like, just leaving us as we go off to now become more inspired and better presenters? What are, like, 3 mistakes we don't want to make?
Oh, okay. 3 mistakes.
Can you be quick?
Yes. Oh, quick mistakes. Okay. Okay, so one of the mistakes as when you're stepping in front of an audience, okay, one mistake, I think I mentioned it before, is just putting too much information
Okay.
in the presentation, like just overloading and saying, I'm going to share my expertise and you take what you will, leave the rest. You'll know what to do. Don't worry, right? Because it's a big mistake to put too much on your audience. Your audience really just wants you to tell them what's important. You know, what do I need to know? What do I need to feel? What do I need to do? It's all about you, right? So that's one big piece, is for you to have come into it with the focus, with the plan of what you want them to get out of it, and do not overload them with this too much information, a complete dump of information. That's too much for them to take. They will disconnect. They will come away with nothing. Right. So that's one, that is one mistake that I see people make. The second mistake is not practicing before they present, is not getting familiar with the words, not getting familiar with, you know, now we're also dealing with technology, but even technology aside and virtual aside, it's not comfortable with how I'm going to tell the story and share the information. That is another thing, is that practice piece. And the third piece, I know that there is so much, but record yourself and watch it, right? Like, this is a mistake. I'm not even saying that this is something we do in front of our audiences, but this is just a mistake we do in general, is we just don't want to watch ourselves. We are so self-critical. But if we could just agree that, you know, okay, for the first 10 seconds, I'll talk about, I can't believe I sound like that, look like that, do that. Then after 10 seconds, push it aside and focus on you, because the best way for you to get better is, and to stop making all the mistakes that we will consistently make, is to start watching yourself objectively. Oh, and can I add one more? Can I add one more? Oh my God, because I think this would be relevant for the Grand Connection, because even Carolyn had mentioned people, or you had mentioned that everyone comes with a story and expertise, their life story. Some people want to really tell their story, and that's amazing and wonderful. But we have to be careful that when we get in front of an audience, they're not so much interested in your story as they are interested in the message behind the story. So instead of approaching an audience going, I'm just going to tell them what happened to me, because sometimes that comes from a place of ego. But if the learning from your story is clear, then your story can be told in a much more meaningful way, right? So the story needs to be told, and it should absolutely be told. But what is it about your story that is the learning? What is this take-home message? Is it what has happened to you that you want them to learn from? And even when I talked about my client, the chief scientist, that she has pieces of her story that were so inspirational, but it's not the story itself, it's what is the lesson from the story? What does your audience need to take away from hearing that? So be careful with the storytelling, and to make sure that you're weaving your story around the message and not the message crammed into the story. You know what I mean?
I know. Thank you so much, Suzannah. Like, I feel just, much more inspired, and with some action items that I can take away to practice and get better at presenting, because we're all trying to level up, grow, and become better at what we do and do our best in this world. And these are such good skills.
I just thank you with the bottom of my heart here. I think what you're doing, it's your gift. I love your authenticity. I love your vulnerability to share your story like you did with us. I think that will inspire a lot of people who may be feeling exactly that way. The story about your client was extraordinary. I just really thank you for contributing, your expertise, your time to the Grand Connection and the Grand Potential podcast. Yes. And we look forward to discovering more grand adventures with Suzannah Baum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for just being who you are and creating this resource and this community of givers.